Alright, hope everyone's having a good day. And today I'll be bringing you hopefully an educational video. Or maybe an educational video. I learned a little something when I was doing the research for it, so maybe you will also. But let's just get straight into it. So this is the evolution of the World Cup ball. So every World Cup ball from 1930 up to the ball we'll be using this year in the 2022 Qatar World Cup. And before we get into each individual ball, I'll give you two little fun facts. So these first 8 balls, every single one of them was manufactured in the same country that the World Cup took place in. And after this year right here, once Adidas took over, the reason why they started making every single ball white was to help for TV. So once the matches started getting televised, they switched to a white ball to make it easier for people watching the matches on live TV. Alright, now let's just get straight into it. So the first year, this was 1930 for the Uruguay World Cup, and this one was called the T model. And you can probably guess it was because the panels that they used were leather T shapes. So then going into 1934, and that would be the Italy World Cup. This is the Federale 102. And the dictator of Italy at the time, Mussolini, actually made a little change to the ball. So before, there were leather laces on the ball, and he changed it to cotton laces to make it a better ball. And I would agree, cotton would be a lot better to kick than leather. But moving into 1938, we have the Allen ball. And this was the 1938 France World Cup, and was actually the first time a manufacturer put their name on it, their logo, so first sponsor on a World Cup ball. And going to 1950 for the Brazil World Cup, we have the Duplo T, which was the first ball that didn't have any laces, and instead of laces it had a valve on it so you could pump it. So that was the introduction of the pumpable ball. But now we move to 1954 for the Switzerland World Cup, and this ball was the first 18 panel ball. So before, they were usually 13 panel, and then this one was made to 18 panel. But now we move to 1958 for the Sweden World Cup, and this one was an interesting one. FIFA actually chose from 102 different candidates from a blind test to be the official FIFA ball. So it was almost like a competition, really, to see who could make the better ball for the World Cup. Interesting. But then we moved to 1962 for the Chile World Cup, and this ball got kind of a bad reputation. Pretty much any team that wasn't the host country was second guessing the ball, and most teams were wanting to swap balls and use a different one. So this was really the first instance where teams were starting to blame the ball for why their team wasn't doing so good. Maybe we'll see that later in the video, who knows. But let's get on to 1966, and this was actually the last year that the host country would manufacture the ball. So this was the 1966 England World Cup, and this was the first 25 panel ball. So they really upped it. They went from 13 to 18 to 25. And for the 1970 Mexico World Cup, they really upped it. So they went from 25 to a 32 panel, and on top of that, also changed the color of the ball to help for television. So 1970, Adidas also took over, and from this point on, the rest of the balls would be Adidas. So 1974, this would be the West Germany World Cup, and it would be the first polyurethane coated ball. So it would make it a lot better in wet conditions. And for the 1978 World Cup in Argentina, they would name the ball the Tango, specifically after the dance move. So the ball really didn't change too much in the production, but they gave it a nice name. And then carrying on to the 1982 World Cup for Spain, they named it the Tango España. because, you know, Spain also has the tango. So again, ball really didn't change too much, but they gave it a nice name according to the country that it was played in. So Tango España, beautiful. But then we have the 1986 World Cup, and this was Mexico again, and they called this ball the Azteca. So you probably guess why, but this was the first fully synthetic ball, and it was actually hand sewn. So they're going back to the grassroots a little bit, hand sewing the ball, and actually later they'll keep kind of going back to the grassroots. But now we're going to the 1990 World Cup back in Italy, and it's called the Etrusco Unico. Now, it doesn't seem the ball has any upgrades from the years before, but again, giving it some good names that go with the country that it's played in. But then we go to 1994, and this one's close to me. 1994 United States World Cup. And once again, ball didn't change too much. This ball was called the Questra, and it had a layer of polyesterine foam, which made it softer, easier to control. But other than that, same outer shell for the ball. But then we go to the 1998 France World Cup. So France with another World Cup, and the ball would relatively stay the same from the 1994. This one would be called the tricolor, and it would be the first ball to introduce multiple colors into it, and they actually used all the colors of the French flag. So great on them for that one. And we moved to 2002, and this was the Fever Nova, and it was the first World Cup ball to have a triangular design, and they gave the ball a cool effect in the background. They were kind of playing around with what they could do with the visual effects. But then we move into 2006 for another Germany World Cup, and for this ball, like I said, they were going back to the grassroots. They went back to a 14 panel design, but they used fewer seams. So it made the ball more round, made it a better shape, and yeah, just a lot better to play with. And I think a lot of the people from the 2006 World Cup that also played in the 2010 World Cup would agree with that, because now we move to the 2010 South Africa World Cup with the Jabulani, and 100% the most iconic, the most problematic ball that we've probably had at a World Cup. The knuckleballs that people got with this ball, it was ridiculous. I mean, I loved watching it, but I guarantee the players did not like the Jabulani too much. But then we go to 2014. This was Brazil, and they knew they had to switch the ball, so they went to a 6-panel design. So some of the smaller panel designs that we've seen, but this was really cool. So they made it polyurethane and 6 panels, and it was much better than the Jabulani. And now we move into the 2018 Russia World Cup, and this was the last ball that we really got to see. So this was the Telestar 18, and it was a reinvention of the original Telestar. So they were using the new kind of way they've been making the balls for the 2014 World Cup. So the polyurethane panels with the old Telestar technology, and it was definitely a good ball. But then we move into the 2022 Qatar World Cup. This is the ball that they will be using this World Cup, and the big priority for them on this one was sustainability. So they're more thinking about how the ball will affect the environment, or how the production of the ball will affect the environment. And that's all I have for you. Those are all the World Cup balls from 1930 to 2022. The World Cup ball we'll be using this year. And please, if you made it this far in the video, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that like button. Comment your favorite ball. I mean, honestly, I'd probably say mine was the Jabulani, just to see what kind of movement you could put on that thing. But please, have a nice day. Thank you.